Explaining the Cuban Missile Crisis. Relations began to sour between the United States and Cuba after Fidel Castro came into power after the Cuban Revolution. He was called a communist by the U.S. government, which he was, and during the Bay of Pigs invasion, they tried to oust him from power in Cuba. President John F. Kennedy of the United States was determined to oust Fidel Castro from power, fearing that he would spread a socialist revolution throughout the Americas. The Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, tried to assassinate Fidel Castro. This failed, and would go on even long after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Castro feared that a full-scale invasion was coming, so he strengthened ties with the USSR. Kennedy campaigned for the missile gap to be filled, because he wrongly believed that the USSR had many more nuclear missiles than the US. Tensions grew as the Berlin Wall was constructed, and the US stationed their missiles inside of Turkey. In 1962, Castro, who was still fearing an invasion, allowed the Soviets to create missiles within Cuba. The construction of these missiles would go unnoticed until a U-2 spy plane noticed them. This horrified the US, as, if you did not know, Cuba is right below the United States. Some inside the United States wanted for the problem to be solved through diplomacy. Others wished for a full-scale invasion of Cuba. Instead of opting for an invasion, especially since the attack would not be justified fully, they instead decided for a naval blockade of Cuba. Kennedy would then go onto television and make the crisis public. Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the USSR, took this as an act of aggression. Not long after this, the US put themselves in DEFCON 2 for the first time in history. If they reached DEFCON 1, that would mean all-out invasion, and in turn, possible nuclear war. Also around this time, talks of a possible invasion began. Nikita Khrushchev would eventually send President Kennedy a letter stating that he would remove the missiles from Cuba if the United States would not invade Cuba. Not long after, he would also send another letter asking for the United States to remove their missiles from Turkey. The two sides would eventually secretly meet and agree to terms, wherein the US would remove their missiles from Turkey and would promise not to invade Cuba, and the USSR would remove their missiles from Cuba. In conclusion, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a very scary situation which could have led to nuclear war. Luckily, the situation was solved peacefully. Thank you for watching this video on the Cuban Missile Crisis.